Hello and welcome to a special mini-sode of Ye Olde Crime, the show where Maddie and I discuss the funny, strange, and obscure crimes of yesteryear every Wednesday. This special bi-weekly segment is called Can You Crack the Cramp-Word, which is slang for a difficult or obscure term, which I thought was very fitting. And with me today is Nikki from the In Bed With Nikky podcast. And before we begin, I'd like to give her the opportunity to tell us a little more about herself and her podcast before we start the game.
Thanks, Lindsay. As you said, name's Nikki here. Every week I get letters and confessions from everyone around the world discussing their sexual fantasies. It's anything between completely vanilla to very explicit. And at the end of each story, I always talk about it and think about it outside the box and how you can explore it with your partner.
Yeah, like I was telling Nikki before we started recording, it's not what I expected in a good way. I like how everything kind of like flows really well together from the introduction through sharing the confessions through, like you said, your interpretations of it. It's actually a really smooth listen, if that makes sense. Like it's very easy to listen to, and it does get pretty hot. Like some of the stuff does get really hot, but then there's also some stuff that really makes you laugh based off what you share.
I know. Thanks. But it does make you think I like to make people think outside their box and maybe explore something and not in showing these people that there are other people out there like themselves that may have that fantasy or may have that desire. It may not be the exact desire, but it still maybe falls in their realm. Mm-hmm. And we're not alone, and we all have sexual desires. And to see somebody else, and I get letters a lot saying, thank you so much for making me feel normal, human, for wanting to try this or that, or giving. I'm having a lot of couples write in now, which is amazing. As I've said in a couple of your recent episodes that, matter of fact, one of them always pops in my head is a woman going to a massage parlor and I never thought of a woman, there are typically, when you think of it, it's, a man goes into that type of massage parlor. You never think of, I never thought of, even though we could, I never thought about it. I'm like, oh, well, that's kind of interesting. And I had somebody write back here recently saying, I took my wife to one and I waited into he waited out and he took my advice and waited out into the spare room, and he asked them to put them in the room closest to him. So he had to visualize in his mind what was going on. And he said that was hotter than actually being in the room.
That's cool.
I know, right?
Not something I would have thought of.
No, I know. And then I brought that up during the show is like having your lover. Would you take your lover or your partner into the room with you, regardless, who your partner was, and have them watch, even if it was just a regular massage. The idea of another human touching you, and if you've ever had a massage, regardless if it's, medicinal or erotic, it's still very erotic because it's a human touch. That's why when your body relaxes, I always fall asleep, honestly.
But I find myself struggling not to fall asleep when I'm getting a massage. It's one of the few times where I can actually like fully relax around somebody else, which is interesting considering they're still a complete stranger.
Exactly. And then the other one that I read that stuck out was a woman, actually, not that we don't call like a call guy, I guess we're going to call him,
Yeah.
She actually went and did like a street corner girl. And again, it's one of those where we don't hear about women picking up, a woman of the night or lady of the night, You just don't hear that. And I thought, not that we can't, but I thought, I was like, good for her.
Yeah.
Not that I would personally would do that. That's a little risque in my department, safety wise, but yeah, kudos for her. That's why I always look at it as kudos for them for exploring sexually and having a bit of adventure,
Yeah, for sure. I like how sex positive your show is. Like, if that makes sense. Like,
no,
promoting or like applauding people for being open and honest about what they're into. And I appreciate the fact that it's like basically a safe space for these people to share their experiences and everything, because nothing's taboo, nothing's off limits, with certain exceptions, obviously, that you note at the
Right.
top of your show. But that's something that I really like, because it's important for people to not feel stigmatized or shamed of what they're into. And I appreciate how your show is such an, like I said, like an open, safe space for people to share what they probably can't share on a regular basis.
I've been a phone sex operator for 17 years, and 99.9% of my callers are men. And so I can, and I do relate that. Not that I don't relate to us as a lady or as a woman having desires that aren't being met, but I do hear more of the men because that's where I did. But even the few ladies that do call me that I've had over the years, with anybody that calls, and even on my show, I try very hard to give them that bubble and make them feel that that's our bubble,
Mm-hmm.
that it exists there. Not only that, I want you to leave with, even if you're listening and you're not into sucking cock if you're a man or a woman, I want you to leave with an open mind of
Mm-hmm.
trying it something, maybe the scenario, but with what you're into.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing, I grew up, I don't know about how you, but it's always, not that this isn't true, but you always hear the word sex isn't everything.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, in my relationships over the years, I think of a relationship as, think of each important thing of your relationship, regardless if you're married or a partner or however you want to categorize it, poly or whatever. There's a chain for everything, like bills, children, yada,
Mm-hmm.
yada, yada. Sex is part of that chain,
Mm-hmm.
regardless what we say. And if any part of that chain is broke, chinked, or weak, the rest of it fails.
Mm-hmm.
So saying sex isn't important. I think I agree in the overall scheme of things, not either one of those chains can be 100%.
Mm-hmm.
There is equal as one or the other. And I never understand if you can't talk, if you can talk about bills, finances, your children, how they'd be raised or weird, or buying a car, or even deciding what's for dinner. And that could be a war on itself.
Mm-hmm.
Why can't you say, I need this? I would like to try this. And it doesn't mean that, say you and I wanted to play.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry, I always, when I go here, I always use the person in front of me. So say you and I wanted to play, but we weren't really sure, or say we were a couple and we weren't sure how we wanted to induce a man or another woman. I always say, watch porn, or if you and I are in open agreement, maybe we go out that night and we sit at a bar and we find someone that turns us on, and maybe we talk to each other right there, but we never physically act on it until we're ready. But
Mm-hmm.
being able just to have that desire, and we may never go past that
Mm-hmm.
ever. And that's okay. And that's okay. But it's just that you and I have found a way to communicate our desires, even if you might find that, say, you don't want another person in our relationship, but the thought that you're seeing me aroused by that may be very arousing to you. So it's okay to not be into what your partner's into, but finding a way that you can give your partner what they're into in a way that works for both of you.
Yep.
So, and that's what I try to bring to the table to my show is finding, you can't have somebody 100% giving all the time. It just doesn't work. It's exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
You want your partner to run beside you and be with you, but we also know how to, as a partner, you also need to know when it's time to lead, when it's time to let that person shine too. So it's a balance and it's constant work, but sex is just as important in a relationship as all the other chains in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And as I always quote on my show from time to time, you'll hear me say, I was raised by my dad. And I always joke, I don't know if he was talking about Home Depot and Lowe's or if he was giving me relationship advice. But he always said to me, he goes, if you don't take care of your house and everything in it and be willing to redecorate it and move things around and change things from time to time, somebody else will come along and take what you took advantage of.
That's very good advice, actually. That's very solid advice.
Yes. And that can go with anything, not just sex. That goes with anything.
Mm-hmm. That's very good advice.
So again, I don't know if I'm supposed to be shopping at Home Depot or Lowe's or relationship advice.
Get some new wall sconces, you know.
Who doesn't need new sconce on the wall?
Awesome.
What is your fantasy? Do you have a secret? We all have sexual fantasies or secrets. That's what my show's all about. My name is Nikki, and I'm the host of In Bed With Nikky. In this show, it's all about sex and the fantasies that people have. Reading from emails directly and anonymously sent to me, together we explore the experiences of everyday people, just like yourself. Often, this is the very first time they've told anybody else about them. You can find In Bed With Nikky on Podchaser, Spotify, Apple iTunes, Full Swap Radio, and anywhere else you find your other favorite podcast. And remember, for every problem, there is a solution, and I call it an orgasm. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, bye for now.
Well, would you like to start the game?
I would love to start the game.
Perfect. So your first slang term is farting crackers.
I'm really bad, honestly. Just, oh my God. I've never seen the movie, but I'm thinking somebody posted they were reviewing this movie the other day. I'm thinking of the teeth and she's in the bathtub. So, but I'm actually thinking the ass is the teeth and it's like it didn't like the cracker and it's spitting out the cracker everywhere. That's exactly what I'm thinking of. But on a side note, since I do talk to a few Brits out there that I totally understand why we fled and put the tea and that's why Boston's rivers are brown. I'm still convinced of this is because the old tea is at the bottom and that's how potent that shit was. That's why. So that's my theory and I'm sticking with it. But so I'm thinking it has something with, like someone said something bad and, they go from there and they're like, they're spitting out crackers or farting out crackers, I guess is what it is. Like it's a bad thing, I guess that's what I'm kind of going for there. How wrong am I?
It's actually, believe it or not, it's a synonym for trousers.
I'm going to ask my British fan, or when I get off here, I'm going to be like, is it, I'll run it by him and see what he says.
Yeah, I call bullshit a little bit on that, but because I certainly wouldn't be like, oh, I gotta put on my farting crackers. You know what I mean? That's like the last thing I would have said. But I also didn't grow up in the Victorian era, so maybe that is what they used to say. But,
yeah, I just texted really quick. I said, "Do you fart crackers?" Yeah, we'll see what he says. Go on.
Well, your second term is beard splitter.
Beard splitter. Beard splitter. Oh, beard splitter. First, I thought you said beer splitter, and I'm like, well, that's just a cheap friend.
That's just a lazy person.
That is a very lazy person, and yeah,
someone you won't invite out for a second run of drinks.
Exactly. Beard splitter. Oh, and then it sounds like somebody's really creative with an axe. I'm just seeing, those really shapely, sexy beards going on,
Yep.
I see this. Why do I see this axe commercial where he's like, yeah, and it's perfectly splits. And now it's like a bad version of the mustache thing where it curls.
Yep.
It splits it like that. I'm sure there's a cartoon out there that did it, when I was growing up, probably. And that's what I'm thinking of. And it splits and it curls. I would say beard splitter. Is that where like somebody, and here I go again. Is that where somebody says something, they're like, oh, no, kind of thing? Like, oh my gosh. Like, because I would consider maybe a pearl clutcher has gotten offended. So what we would say in my industry, oh no, we have the pearl clutchers fanning because we got red fingernail polish on.
How dare you?
How dare you, Fred? Oh my God, your collar. See, I mean, horrible in Victorian era because my boobs sit high. So they would have me in like the hazmat suits and I would still be wearing the red A everywhere. My boobs are set too high. The boobs are on too high.
Harlot.
Harlot, you. Be like, yeah, well, your daddy didn't complain.
When he took off this hazmat suit. He was willing to expose himself to it.
Very much so. Beard split. Yeah, I'm gonna go with the pearl clutching thing because it just was funny. We ran with it.
Apparently, a beard splitter is someone who enjoys women.
Right. Sort of.
Sort of
We
right.
worked our way. Kind of. I'm going with it.
It's a type of beard that was split, I guess.
Well, remember the daddy liked it, so we could be
Yes.
harlots.
There you go.
There we go. We were right. I'm taking that one.
I'm going to give you that one because you got there in the end.
We got there. I can talk my way into a lot of things, I think. Oh.
I just thought that one was very funny. So I had to include that one.
We got there.
Well, I would like to thank you for joining me today, Nikki, for Can You Crack the Cramp-Word? It was an absolute delight having you on the show.
This was a blast. I would love to do this again.
So before we go, did you want to let our listeners know where they can find you on social media?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter or Instagram at dnikky, NIKKY162. You can find me anywhere you find this lovely favorite podcast of yours. You can also find it at dearnikky.com, where you can also send me confessions anonymously.
There you go. Thank you again for coming on this show. And as always, I'm Lindsay, and I'll see you next time with another tale as old as crime.
The Oracle Network.